Good day, everyone. Welcome to Practical Research 2. Hoping all of you are doing well and are ready for another exciting learning journey. This subject is more than just writing a research paper. It is about learning how to ask meaningful questions, gather reliable evidence, analyze data, and make informed decisions based on facts rather than assumptions. Before we begin our lesson 2, let's first review what we discussed during our previous meeting. First, what is a research? Research is a systematic process of investigating a problem or answering a question by collecting, analyzing, and interpreting information. It is systematic because researchers follow organized steps instead of making conclusions based on assumptions or personal opinions. Now, what are the two major research approaches? So these are qualitative and quantitative. Now, what is the difference between qualitative and quantitative research? Qualitative research focuses on understanding experiences, opinions, beliefs, and meanings, while quantitative research focuses on collecting numerical data and analyzing them using statistics. Lastly, what are the five common kinds of quantitative research? These are descriptive, correlational, causal comparative, quasi-experimental, and experimental. Now let us briefly define these types. First is descriptive research. So this describes the current condition or status of a group or situation. Correlational research, so this determines whether two variables are related. But remember, correlation does not necessarily mean causation. Next is causal comparative research. So this compares existing groups to examine possible reasons for their differences. Next is quasi-experimental research. This studies the effect of an intervention using existing groups without random assignment. Lastly, we have experimental research. So this determines cause and effect by manipulating variables and using random assignment, making it the strongest design for establishing causal relationships. So hopefully you still remember our discussion. For today class, we are going to answer a very important question. Why is quantitative research important in different fields of society? I want everyone to imagine something. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the world has stopped conducting research, wherein no one studies diseases anymore, no one investigates climate change, no one develops new medicines, no one evaluates teaching methods, no one studies customer needs before creating products, no one gathers information before making government policies. So what do you think would happen? So imagine these things, ibig sabihin, pwedeng medicine would not improve, schools would not know how to help students, businesses might fail, governments might make poor decisions, and society would stop progressing. Diba? So without research, society would rely only on assumptions and personal opinions. Imagine a doctor prescribing medicine without testing whether it is safe. So imagine engineers constructing bridges without testing whether they are strong enough. So imagine teachers changing teaching methods without knowing whether students actually learn better. So these situations show us that research is not just an academic requirement, it is a necessity. So research provides evidence that helps people make better decisions. Among the different research approaches, quantitative research plays a very important role because it provides measurable, objective, and reliable information. Now, let us discuss the importance of quantitative research. When we say something is important, we ask, why do we need it? So there are many reasons why quantitative research is valuable. First is Quantitative research helps us make better decisions. So every day, people make decisions. Some decisions are simple, while others affect thousands or even millions of people. So instead of guessing, decision makers gather numerical data. They analyze the data before deciding. So for example, suppose the school administration wants to know whether students need additional computers in the computer laboratory. So instead of relying on a few opinions, they survey all grade 12 students. The results show that 82% of students believe that more computers are needed. So because of this evidence, the administration has a stronger basis for making its decision. Notice that the decision is based on data rather than assumptions. That is one of the greatest strengths of quantitative research. Second is quantitative research helps solve problems. So every problem has a cause. Before solving a problem, researchers must first understand it. So for example, suppose a school notices that many grade 12 students are failing mathematics. Instead of immediately blaming the students, researchers gather information. They collect grades, they survey study habits, they record attendance, they analyze examination results. So after studying the data, they discover that students who attend review sessions perform significantly better than who do not. This information helps teachers design better intervention programs. Without quantitative research, the school might solve the wrong problem. Next is quantitative research measures change. One of the greatest advantage of quantitative research is its ability to measure change over time. For example, a teacher introduces a new teaching strategy. She gives a pre-test before using the strategy. So after several weeks, she administers a post-test. If the average score increases from, let's say, 68 to 87, the teacher has numerical evidence that learning improved. So without numbers, it would be difficult to determine whether the strategy was truly effective. Fourth is quantitative research helps predict future trends. Researchers also use quantitative research to predict future events. For example, meteorologists analyze weather data to forecast storms. Economists analyze inflation rates to predict economic conditions. Health experts monitor disease cases to predict possible outbreaks. School analyze enrollment trends to estimate how many classrooms will be needed in the coming years. Although predictions are not always perfect, they become much more accurate when supported by data. Number five is quantitative research evaluates programs and projects. Many organizations want to know whether their programs are successful. So, for example, suppose the Department of Education introduces a new reading program. How can they determine whether the program is effective? So, they compare reading test scores before and after implementing the program. If students' reading performance improves significantly, researchers can conclude that the program is effective. So without quantitative research, organizations would not know whether their programs are working. So research is not limited to schools. So almost every profession depends on quantitative research. Last, quantitative research provides reliable evidence that helps individuals and organizations make better decisions. As future professionals and researchers, understanding the importance of quantitative research will help you appreciate why collecting accurate data and analyzing it properly are essential in solving real-world problems. Now that we understand why quantitative research is important across different fields, our next lesson will focus on one of its most important building blocks. So every quantitative study is built around variables. And before we conduct our own research, we must first learn how to identify, classify, and use them correctly. In fact, every quantitative research study begins with it. This concept is called variables. Now, I want you to remember your classmates in a classroom setting. When you look around the classroom and observe your classmates, remember that no two people are exactly the same. Some are taller, some are shorter, some wear eyeglasses, some have different hair lengths, some may have higher grades, wherein some may spend more time studying, some sleep for 6 hours, while others sleep more than that. Even though you are all grade 12 students, many things about you are different. So these differences are what researchers often study. So in research, anything that changes, differs, or varies from one person, object, or situation to another is called a variable. The word variable comes from the word vary, which means to change or to be different. In research, a variable is any characteristic, quality, or condition that can take on different values or categories among people, objects, or situations. Let us understand this definition one part at a time. First, a variable is a characteristic. A characteristic is simply a feature or attribute of a person or thing. For example, age, height, weight, gender, academic performance, monthly allowance, or number of siblings. So these are all characteristics. Second, a variable can have different values. For example, if we ask everyone in this classroom about their age, will everyone answer exactly the same? No, of course. Some may be 16 or 17 or 19 years old because age can have different values. So it is considered a variable. Now let us look at another example. If we ask everyone whether today is Wednesday, would the answer be different? Of course not. 'Di ba? Everyone would give the same answer. Since the answer does not vary, it is not a variable in this situation. Remember this important idea. A variable must vary. If it does not change or differ, then it is not considered a variable in that study. Now that we know what variables are, let us answer another question. Why are variables important in research? Imagine conducting a study without measuring anything. Could you compare students? Could you determine relationships? Could you identify improvements? Of course not. Variables are the foundation of quantitative research because they provide the information that researchers collect, analyze, and interpret. So without variables, there would be no numerical data to analyze. Okay, now let us discuss the uses of variables to have a deeper understanding of variables. So first, variables help describe people or situation. So for example, a researcher wants to know the average monthly allowance of grade 12 students. So the variable being measured is monthly allowance. So by collecting this information, the researchers can describe the students. So take notes of the underlined words. Second is variables help compare groups. A researcher wants to compare science grades between STEM students and UMS students. The variable is science grade. So the researcher compares one group with another. Third is variables help identify relationships. A researcher wants to know whether study habits are related to academic performance. Notice the word relationship, meaning there are two variables involved in this kind of study. The researchers measures two variables, the study habits and academic performance, and determines whether a relationship exists between them. Fourth one is variables help determine cause and effect. A researcher wants to know whether using educational videos improves examination scores. Again, notice the words cause and effect. So there are two variables. So the researcher changes one variable and observes whether another variable changes. At ano naman ang tawag doon sa mga variables na involved? Okay, so now that we understand what variables are, let us study their different kinds. Different variables serve different purposes in a research. We have the independent and dependent variables. Is independent variable. The independent variable is the variable that the researcher believes influences or affects another variable. It is often called the cause, the predictor, or the manipulated variable. So researchers either introduce it, select it, or examine its influence. For example, the effect of study time on mathematics achievement. So what is being changed or examined in this case? It is the study time. So study time is the independent variable because it is expected to influence students' mathematics achievement. Another example, the effect of online learning on academic performance. The independent variable is it is the online learning. So online learning is the independent variable because it is expected to influence students' academic performance. Next is the dependent variable. The dependent variable is the result or outcome that the researcher measures. So it depends on the independent variable. In other words, if the independent variable changes, the dependent variable may also change. For example, sa gamitin natin yung example kanina, the effect of study time on mathematics achievement. Okay, so if students study longer, what outcome are we measuring? It is the mathematics achievement. So the dependent variable in this study is the mathematics achievement. Is the control variable. So sometimes researchers want to make sure that only one factor influences the results. To do this, they keep certain conditions the same throughout the study. So these are called control variables. Okay, so for example, a researcher compares two teaching methods. To make the comparison fair, there should be same teacher, same classroom, same lesson, same examination, and same schedule. So these conditions remain constant in order to make the comparison fair. Another one is extraneous variable. Unfortunately, not everything can be controlled. Some factors may affect the results even though they are not the focus of the study. So these are called extraneous variables. So examples include motivation, family support, internet connection, health condition, noise level, or emotional stress. So if researchers fail to control these variables, they may influence the results and reduce the accuracy of the study. So variables can also be classified according to the type of information they contain. First is qualitative variables or categorical variables. So these describe qualities or categories rather than numbers. So these are the examples: gender, blood type, strand, religion, or favorite subject. Although we may assign numbers for coding purposes, for example, in gender, one for female or two for male. So the numbers simply represent categories. Next, with quantitative variables, these are variables that can be measured numerically. So examples are height, weight, age, examination score, income, or number of siblings. So these are all numerical data. One under the quantitative variable is discrete variables. So discrete variables are counted. So they usually involve whole numbers. For example, numbers of sibling, number of books, number of students. Another variable under the quantitative variable is the continuous variables. So continuous variables are measured. They may include decimal values. Examples are height, weight, time, temperature, or distance. So they may include decimal values. Now, let us have the levels of measurement. So researchers also classify variables according to how they are measured. So this helps determine which statistical analysis is appropriate to apply. So for nominal level of measurement, the nominal level is the simplest level of measurement. So the characteristics are categories or labels only, no numerical meaning, no ranking or order. So the word nominal comes from the word name, meaning that data are simply placed into different groups or categories based on their names or labels. So for example, male or female. So there is no ranking between male and female. So one is not greater or better than the other. So another example, let's say blood type. So we have blood type A, B, AB, or O. So these are simply different categories. So for school strand, we have STEM, ABM, UMS, GAS, or TVL. So the strands are simply different academic programs. Okay, so another example, a researcher wants to determine the distribution of grade 12 students according to their senior high school strand. So these are the results. STEM is 120 students, ABM 80 students, UMS 60 students, and TVL 90 students. So the researcher can count how many students belong to each strand, but it would not make sense to say STEM is higher than ABM because these are only categories. Again, this type is under nominal levels of measurement. Next is ordinal level of measurement. So the ordinal level classifies data into categories with a meaningful order or ranking. However, the distance between one category and another is not equal or measurable. So the examples, we have class rank, satisfaction level, and socioeconomic status. So for class rank, so we have first, second, third, and fourth. So we know who ranks higher, but we do not know how much better the first student performed than the second. And then for the satisfaction level naman, so we have very dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, hanggang very satisfied. So these responses are arranged from negative to positive. But the difference between satisfied and very satisfied is subjective. Okay, next is socioeconomic status. So we have low, middle, and high. So there is an order, but we cannot assume that the gap between low and middle is the same as the gap between middle and high. Okay, so another example, a school surveys students about the quality of the school canteen. So these are the responses, very dissatisfied, neutral, satisfied, very satisfied. So the researcher can determine that most students are satisfied, but cannot assume that moving from satisfied to very satisfied represents the same increase as moving from neutral to satisfied. So again, remember the characteristics of ordinal level of measurement. So first, it is, okay, so categories with order can rank from lowest to highest, but differences between categories are not equal. So just like addition and subtraction are not meaningful. Third is interval level of measurement. The interval level contains ordered numerical values where the intervals between numbers are equal. However, zero does not mean the complete absence of the quantity. Why is there no true zero? So a value of zero does not mean nothing. Okay, so for example, temperature in Celsius. So 40 degrees Celsius, 30 degrees Celsius, up to 0 hanggang negative 10 degrees Celsius. So at 0 degrees Celsius, temperature still exists. So it simply represents a point on the Celsius scale. Therefore, 0 degrees Celsius does not mean there is no temperature. So again, remember its characteristic. So ordered numbers, equal intervals, addition and subtraction are meaningful. No true zero, ratios are not meaningful. So fourth is ratio level of measurement. So the ratio level is the highest level of measurement because it has all the characteristics of interval data plus a true zero. So a true zero means the complete absence of the quantity being measured. So examples, we have height, weight, age, and income. Okay, so for height, let's say 150, 170, and 180 centimeters. So a person who is 180 centimeter tall is taller than someone who is 150 centimeter tall. Then for weight, we have 45, 60, and 80 kilogram. So a weight of 0 kilogram means no weight. And then for age, we have 15, 18, and 21 years. So a newborn starts at age 0. Okay, next. Say for income, so we have 0, 10,000, and 25,000 pesos. So an income of 0 means no income. And then number of books, we have 0 books, 5, and 10 books. 0 books means there are no books. And then time spent studying, we have 0, 2, and 5 hours. So 0 hours means no time was spent studying. Another example, a researcher investigates whether study time affects examination scores. So these are the data collected. So student A, B, C, and D, and then hours studied, we have 1, 3, 5, and 7 hours. So the researcher can validly say, student D studied 7 times longer than someone who studied 1 hour. Another one is a student who studied 4 hours spent twice as much time studying as someone who studied 2 hours. So because time has a true zero, ratio comparisons are meaningful. Okay, so the characteristics are ordered values, equal intervals, has a true zero, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are meaningful. And then the ratios can be compared. Now, how to spot the differences among these levels of measurement? So now look at the summary table or comparison table. So the easy way to remember this is, so you can easily remember the 4 levels of measurement by thinking of nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. So nominal means name. So the data are simply grouped into categories or labels without any particular order. So sa madaling salita, pinapangalanan or kinakategorya lang natin yung mga data. So walang mas mataas or mas mababa sa mga ito. Then ordinal means order. So the categories can be arranged from lowest to highest or from first to last. But the differences between them are not necessarily equal. So ibig sabihin, may tamang pagkakasunod-sunod pero hindi natin masasabi kung pare-pareho yung pagitan ng bawat antas or ng bawat data. And then we have interval. So interval refers to measurement with equal spacing between values but no true zero. So this means we can measure the differences between values, but we cannot say that one value is twice as much as another. Yung zero, okay, yung zero rito, hindi siya nangangahulugang walang sukat. Kaya hindi pwedeng sabihin na doble ng isang halaga kumpara sa iba. So finally, we have ratio. So ratio has all the characteristics of interval data, but it also has a true zero. So because of this, we can make meaningful comparisons using multiplication and also division. So dito, yung zero, nangangahulugan talaga na wala siyang sinusukat. So kaya maaari nating sabihin, halimbawa, na ang ah, 10 hours or 10 oras ng pag-aaral ay 2 beses na mas mahaba kaysa sa 5 hours or 5 oras. For the lesson summary, so before we end our discussion today, let us remember the most important points we learned. We discovered that quantitative research is important because it helps us make better decisions, solve problems, measure changes, predict future trends, and evaluate programs using reliable numerical data instead of assumptions. We also learned that every quantitative study begins with variables, the characteristics or qualities that can change or differ among people, objects, or situations. We discussed the different kinds of variables such as independent, dependent, control, and extraneous variables, as well as qualitative and quantitative variables, including discrete and also continuous variables. Finally, we explored the 4 levels of measurement: nominal, which is for names or categories only; ordinal, which involves order or ranking; interval, which has equal intervals but no true zero; and ratio, which has equal intervals with a true zero, allowing meaningful comparisons. So tandaan nyo, these concepts are not just for passing this subject, so they are the building blocks of every quantitative research study that you will conduct. So kapag naintindihan nyo yung variables at levels of measurement, magiging mas madali para sa inyo yung pagbuo ng research title. Also, the research question, data gathering instruments, at maging ang data analysis sa mga susunod nating lessons. Now, as we end today's class, I encourage everyone to observe the things around you and start thinking like a researcher. So ask questions, be curious, and always look for evidence before believing or concluding something. So remember, good research begins with good questions, and great discoveries begin with curious minds. Thank you for attentively listening today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And again, this is Teacher Jana. Goodbye and God bless.